I'm Mark Kelly in Mr. Saltwater Tank, and this is Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Light-emitting diodes, or LEDs, continue to be the hottest topic in the saltwater tank world. There simply hasn't been a product that has had as much interest or has been adopted as quickly as LEDs. And EcoTech Marine, the maker of the Radion LED fixture, well, they recently released Generation 2 of the Radion and the Radion Pro. And in this episode of Mr. Saltwater Tank TV, I'm going to take off my Generation 1 Radions and give the Generation 2 and the Radion Pro a try. However, I'm going to do it with a little bit of a twist. So what's the twist? Well, the twist is with the PAR meter. And what's PAR? PAR stands for photosynthetically active radiation. In other words, light that falls in the 400 to 700 nanometer range. Why is that kind of light important? Well, this is the spectrum of the light that corals use to carry on photosynthesis and grow. So that's the kind of light that we want to measure. Most of the time, when you see reviews of LED fixtures, they use one of these to measure PAR. Now this is the Apogee PAR meter. Now this works pretty well. However, when it measures PAR of LED fixtures, it can be off by up to 35%. So, to take things up a notch in true Mr. Saltwater Tank TV style, I'm going to use one of these to measure PAR. Now what is this? This is the Lycor 192 underwater PAR meter. Why is it so special? Well, this is scientific grade equipment. Scientists use this to get very accurate readings of PAR. For example, Dr. Sanjay Joshi, who's done a lot of talking, written a lot of articles about LED fixtures, well, he uses this exact meter. And I just got it back from the factory to be calibrated, so it's spot on. So there's one twist, but let's have some fun and bump it up a notch again. So how am I going to bump up this review yet another notch higher? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you that PAR meter in the tank, and at the same time, show you the PAR readout on the data logger here. Now keep in mind, the data logger measures PAR instantaneously, and it displays running average of the past several seconds of PAR readings. That means you're going to see the PAR readings bounce around a little bit. However, that's totally normal. So we have super accurate PAR meter that's just been calibrated, and you're going to see exactly the PAR readings that I got as I measured them, so you know what I measured is what you're seeing. With that, here's how I'm going to run this experiment. I'm going to take the PAR readings at a couple different depths in my tank. I'll take them right above the surface of the water and right at the surface of the water, about 6 inches below the water line, halfway down the tank, then 3/4 of the way down, and finally on the sand bed. This will give us an idea of the different PAR readings at different depths. I'll take all these readings at the same place in my tank, as there's only one place in the tank where I have a clear shot straight down to the sand bed. Keep in mind two things while you're watching the review. Number one, I'm not breaking out the tape measure to make sure I'm exactly 6 inches or say halfway down the tank each time. That would just simply take too much time. And look, if one PAR reading was done at 6 inches of depth and the next one was done at 7 inches of depth, the world isn't going to come to an end and your tank isn't going to crash. Relative numbers are fine. Also, the PAR meter won't be able to reach flat down on the sand bed due to the pigtail of the cord. So my sand bed reading will be about 4 inches off the sand bed. Now, some hair splitters are going to say that the sand bed readings aren't accurate as I'm not exactly on the sand bed. On one level that's true, and keep in mind, if the PAR reading is 100 at 4 inches off the sand bed and 95 on the sand bed, your corals could care less. Over my tank, I have 4 Radions, and I'll measure the PAR readings as such. I'll leave all 4 lights on, then I'll turn off one bank of lights, so that'll leave 2 lights on, then finally measure PAR with just 1 light on. I'll take each set of PAR readings at 100% intensity, then 75%, then 50%, and then finally 25% intensity. I'll measure PAR readings under the Generation 1 Radions that do not have the TIR lenses, then the G2 Radions, and then finally the Radion Pros. Lastly, the lights are going to be suspended 7 inches off the water line, as this is what EcoTech recommends for the Radions. All right, let's go grab some data. PAR meter, data logger. Now, since I can't hold on to the data logger and hold a PAR meter in the tank at the same time, I'm going to have my lovely assistant, Ashley. Come say hi, Ashley.
Hello, everyone.
If you purchased one of my guides, Ashley is the person who calls you to thank you for your order. So now you know who you're talking to on the phone, and whatever you do, please don't make her cry.
Please.
Let's go get our hands wet.
All right, here's how it looks. You can see the sensor, you can see the PAR readout instantaneously. Rather than make you sit here and watch all this boring data collection, I'm going to condense all the numbers for you. If you want to see the raw footage, just follow the link at the end of the video. Here's the Radion Pro data. And now the Generation 2 Radion data.
If you're paying attention, you probably notice that some of the par readings are higher on the sand bed than they are 3/4 of the way down the tank. Now, why is that? Well, it has to do with the sensor. The sensor is very sensitive, scientific grade equipment. So it's going to be most accurate when the sensor is perpendicular to the light above it. If you turn it 5 degrees, which you would never be able to detect that you're turning it 5 degrees, a very small amount, there's not going to be as much light getting down into the sensor. So when I'm holding it off the sand bed, more tendency to hold it not perpendicular. When I drop it down to the sand bed, I have that cord holding me steady, it's more easy to get it perpendicular. Now, I don't believe for a minute that the par numbers are higher on the sand bed than they are 3/4 of the way down the tank. I did want to explain that discrepancy in the data, so when you see it, you're not scratching your head going, why is that? Before I show you the Generation 1 numbers, keep this in mind. In reviewing the data from the light underneath the Generation 1 fixtures, I noticed there are some discrepancies in the data that I wasn't happy with. And I said, I want this review to be accurate, so I'm going to remeasure all those par numbers. Now, at that point, the 375-gallon tank behind me had been set up, and the 235-gallon tank had already been torn down. Now, I still had the 235-gallon tank on hand, so I filled it up with water, rehung the fixtures, and remeasured those par numbers. Also, keep this in mind. Since there isn't a big change in data between 4 lights on and 2 lights on, I just rehung 2 Radions over that 235-gallon tank and measured the par numbers with 2 lights on and then 1 light on. So, that in mind, let's look at the Generation 1 data. All right, we've seen the data. What's my take on it? First, all these fixtures put out plenty of light. Even the Generation 1 Radion without the TR lenses puts out plenty of par for all the saltwater tanks out there. Number 2, some of those par numbers, even at the sand bed, were crazy high, like coral scorching high. So if you're running the Radions, any of them, Generation 1, Generation 2, or the Radion Pro, I recommend you turn down the intensity. Let me give you some context. On my 90-gallon tank, the max intensity I ever had the Generation 1 Radions without the TR lenses on that tank was, I think, 60, maybe 70%. If I still had that tank, I'd be dialing it back down to 40, 50% max. Now, on my 375-gallon tank, I went with 4 Radion Pros. I have them running at a maximum intensity of 20%. You heard me right. 20%, that's the max intensities that these fixtures reach. I might turn them up to 30% in time, but I certainly don't need to because there's more than enough light out of them. That being said, any review that I do for you, I'm committed to showing you things that I like and things that I don't like. So what would I like to see different with the Radions? Well, I'm still waiting for the wireless controller from EcoTech. Now, knowing EcoTech, it's in the works, but they're sticking to their usual mode of product rollout, which is to actually talk about a product when it's ready to ship, and hopefully that the wireless controller is a truly wireless controller. They don't tell me these things. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I like to see different. Have to keep an eye out there and see what they come out with. So, Radion, no matter what fixture you go with, more than capable of growing corals in your tank. If you have them, turn them down as opposed to turning them up. I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank. This has been Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Till next time, have a good one, enjoy your tanks, and know your tank personality.